They say blood is thicker than water, but in my case, blood felt more like quicksand. I never planned to bankroll my brother's life. It started with small things, a bill here, some groceries there, but slowly, without me even realizing it, I became their safety net. Correction, their lifestyle sponsor. My brother Ryan and his wife Christine had hit a financial rough patch read. Ryan couldn't hold a job longer than a TikTok trend, so I let them stay in my condo, my name on the lease, my money paying every bill. Rent, utilities, food, even Christine's weird obsession with mood-setting candles. I paid for it all. They said it would just be temporary. Just until we get back on our feet, Georgia. Those were Ryan's exact words. That was 8 months ago. In those 8 months, do you know how many times Ryan thanked me? 0. Zilch. Nada. If anything, he acted like he was doing me a favor by accepting my help. I should have seen the signs, but I told myself, he's my brother. Family takes care of each other. God, I was naive. The breaking point came during a family dinner. Ryan and Christine wanted to host something nice. In my condo, of course, using food and wine I paid for, obviously. I even chipped in for decorations because Christine wanted ambience. Whatever. Our dad, my little sister Emily, and our mom who had flown in for the weekend were all there. The apartment looked nice. For a second, it almost felt worth it. And then Ryan opened his mouth. He started slow. Some jabs about me being single. A couple of snide remarks about how I worked too much and lacked spontaneity. Nothing new. Ryan had made me the family punchline for years. Usually I let it slide, but that night, he wouldn't stop. When's the last time you even had a date, Georgia? He smirked, like he was doing stand-up. Christine laughed. Our dad chuckled politely. Emily glanced at me, then looked away, and then he said it. Honestly, even our neighbor's more desirable than you. There it was. The room erupted in laughter. They were sitting in the condo I paid for, eating the dinner I cooked, sipping the wine I brought, and mocking me like I was some clown for their entertainment. Something inside me went completely still. I put down my glass, looked Ryan dead in the eye, and calmly said, "Yeah, he probably seems better. Especially since you're sleeping with him." Silence. The kind of silence that crashes down like a glass ceiling shattering in slow motion. Even the hum of the fridge sounded louder. Ryan froze. Christine blinked. Our dad stopped mid-chew. Emily gasped like she was in a soap opera. And my mom, she just stared at me like I had set the room on fire. Which, metaphorically, I had. You know that second right after a bomb goes off in a movie? When everything slows down and there's this ringing sound and all the characters just stand there, stunned? That's what it felt like. Ryan's face twisted from smug to stunned, like someone had just thrown ice water in his lap. Christine's mouth was literally hanging open. Our mom dropped her fork. My dad? He just looked tired, like something inside him had already accepted the chaos before it even arrived. And then, finally, Ryan laughed. A forced, high-pitched laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Georgia," he said, "what the hell are you talking about?" I didn't blink. You, the neighbor, 2 floors down. Every Thursday afternoon when Christine's at yoga. Christine turned to him, eyes wide. "You said you were at job interviews." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Emily was the first to speak. "Wait, is that why he was always asking me to help move boxes during the day?" Christine stood up so fast her chair scraped across the hardwood. "Are you kidding me, Ryan?" He tried to defend himself, but our mom cut in before he could. "Georgia," she snapped. "That was completely out of line. What's wrong with you?" I turned to her, baffled. "I'm sorry, what?" She crossed her arms like a judge handing down a sentence. "That's between Ryan and Christine. You had no right to say that here, like this. You embarrassed him." My jaw tightened. I embarrassed him? In the condo I pay for? At the dinner I funded? While he mocks me to my face? Christine's eyes were tearing up now, mascara streaking like melting ink. She wasn't even looking at Ryan anymore, just staring at the floor, shaking her head. I took a breath and pulled out a folded check from my pocket. It was $2,000, one last payment I had planned to give them. I held it up between my fingers. Ryan looked at it like it was a lifeline. And then, slowly, deliberately, I tore it in half. Then again, and let the pieces fall like dead leaves onto the center of the table. "You're on your own," I said, standing up. Ryan sputtered. "You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted. And I just did. As I turned toward the door, our mom grabbed my arm, hard. "You don't walk away from family," she hissed. I pulled free. Maybe family shouldn't be built on manipulation and lies. I made it halfway to the front door before I heard footsteps behind me. It was Emily. She looked shaken, but her voice was steady. "Wait up." We stepped out into the hallway together, and for a second, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "Georgia, there's something else." I turned to her. "What?" She looked down, then back up, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. "I don't think Ryan's the only one hiding something." Emily wouldn't look at me. She just stood there in the hallway, arms folded tight like she was bracing for an impact. "What do you mean?" I asked. "What else is going on?" She bit her lip and glanced toward the elevator. "Not here." We took the stairs. Neither of us said a word on the way down. When we reached the parking garage, she stopped next to my car and leaned against the driver's side door. "I didn't say anything before because I wasn't sure what I saw," she murmured. "But now, after that dinner, I'm sure." My stomach dropped. "Emily, what did you see?" She took a deep breath. "Dad, he's cheating on Mom." I blinked. "What? No, that doesn't make any sense." "I saw him," she cut in. "Twice. Once at the cafe by the park, holding hands with some younger woman, and again near the hiking trail, parked with her in the car." I stared at her, mind racing. "Who is she?" "I don't know her name," Emily said, frowning. "But she's not some random woman. She's his assistant. The one Mom used to complain about, remember? The one who always lingered after meetings? That made my blood run cold. The pieces began to click in a way I didn't like. Mom had always gone quiet whenever that assistant's name came up. She used to joke about it, make little passive-aggressive comments like, "She better not be staying late again." But she never pressed it. Now I understood why. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" I whispered. I wasn't sure if it was really what I thought it was. And then Ryan's stuff exploded, and everything got messy. I leaned back against the hood of my car. The silence in the garage felt suffocating. "Okay," I finally said. "Take me to where you saw them." Emily hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Yes." She gave a reluctant nod, and we got in the car. 15 minutes later, we were parked outside the cafe. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. People sipping lattes, tapping away on laptops. Emily pointed to a booth by the window. "That's where I saw them the first time." "Were they touching?" "Not just touching, holding hands, whispering, like intimate." I couldn't reconcile the image in my head. My dad, so reserved, so traditional, holding hands with another woman in public. But Emily wasn't done. "The second time was worse," she said. "I saw them at the trailhead parking lot. It was late. Her car was parked next to his. I walked right past them before they saw me." She gave me the address, and we drove in silence. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When we pulled into the gravel lot, I saw it immediately. A silver BMW, parked at the edge under the trees. Emily's breath caught. "That's her car." And then, just like that, I saw them. Sitting in the front seat, Dad and a woman. Younger, polished, her hair neatly tied back. She was laughing. He reached over and brushed a strand of her hair behind her ear, and she leaned into it, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My chest tightened. Without thinking, I flung the door open. "Georgia!" Emily hissed. "What are you doing?" But I was already moving. I stormed up to the car and knocked on the window, hard. They both jumped. Dad's face went pale. The woman's expression shifted from relaxed to frozen terror. He rolled down the window slowly, like he could delay what was coming. "Georgia," he began. "What the hell is this?" Neither of them answered. The woman, his assistant, I now recognized her, reached for the door handle, but I beat her to it and pulled it open. Dad didn't even try to deny it. "This isn't what you think, really?" I snapped, because it looks exactly like what I think it is. The assistant scrambled out of the passenger seat and all but ran to her car without looking back. "Coward." I turned back to my father, voice low and cold. "How long?" He looked like he was going to lie. I saw it in the twitch of his jaw, the delay in his breath. But then, maybe realizing he couldn't, he muttered, "Almost 2 years." My heart dropped into my stomach. "You've been lying to Mom for 2 years?" He looked away. I stepped back like I'd been slapped. Unbelievable. Emily caught up just then, her face pale. "You told me you stopped. You told Mom you were done traveling so much." Dad rubbed his temples. "You wouldn't understand." "Then explain it," I hissed. "Because from where I'm standing, this looks like the most selfish, hypocritical crap I've ever seen." He didn't respond. I shook my head. "You know what's funny? Mom defended Ryan tonight. She actually yelled at me. Because I exposed him." Silence. "And now, I know why," I whispered. "Because you're just like him." That got a reaction. He flinched like I'd slapped him. "She's still your mother," he muttered. "Yeah," I said bitterly, "and you're still my father. At least, I thought you were." Then Emily stepped forward. "Are you going to tell her?" Dad looked panicked. "No, please, don't." "Why not?" I said. "She deserves to know. Because it'll destroy everything." "No," I said, my voice sharp, unwavering. "You already did that. I'm just exposing it." We left him there, sitting in the car, alone, shoulders slumped, like a man watching his own empire crumble. The drive back was quiet, and inside me something shifted. I had spent months, years, bending over backward for this family, sacrificing, helping, protecting. And what had they done? Mocked me, lied to me, used me, but not anymore. Something had cracked open. And now, I was done being the family's emotional and financial punching bag. The next few days were a blur of silence, half-finished sentences, and avoidance. It was like our family collectively agreed to pretend the world hadn't tilted on its axis. Nobody reached out. Not Ryan, not our father, not even Christine, though I wasn't surprised. If I were her, I'd be too embarrassed to show my face after defending a man who had been sleeping with the guy 2 floors down. The one person who didn't vanish was Emily. She came over the day after our parking lot showdown, holding 2 iced coffees and wearing a look that told me this wasn't a casual visit. "He's not going to tell her," she said before even sitting down. I didn't ask who. I knew exactly who she meant. "I figured," I muttered, taking a sip of the drink. "He's acting like it didn't happen. He texted me this morning, said he's committing to the marriage, whatever that means." I laughed bitterly. "Recommitting? That's rich." Emily hesitated. "Are you gonna tell her?" I didn't answer right away. Part of me still didn't want to be the messenger. I'd already burned every bridge in this family. What difference would one more make? But then I remembered Mom's face at the dinner, the way she'd defended Ryan, how quickly she'd turned on me, like I was the villain for telling the truth. And it clicked. She wasn't just defending Ryan. She was protecting herself. "If we don't tell her," I said slowly, "we're complicit." Emily nodded grimly. "Then we do it. Together." We planned it out like a tactical strike. Mom had a standing brunch reservation at some trendy spot she loved. Lots of natural light, overpriced avocado toast, and at least 3 couples pretending not to argue while sipping mimosas. She was already seated when we arrived, phone in hand, tapping away like she was solving world hunger with passive-aggressive texts. She looked up, surprised. "This is a nice surprise." "It's not a surprise," I said. "We asked to meet." Her smile faltered. "Right." Emily sat next to her. I took the seat across so I could see her face clearly. We didn't even order food. There's something you need to know, I started. About Ryan? She said, eyes narrowing. Because if this is another… No, Emily interrupted. It's about Dad. That got her attention. What about him? She asked, voice flat. He's been having an affair, I said plainly, for almost 2 years. With his assistant. Her face didn't move. Not at first. It was eerie how she just paused. Like her mind was buffering, trying to process the data. Then, slowly, she set down her phone. Excuse me? She said. He admitted it to us. We saw them together. In his car, at the trailhead lot. Silence. Then, to my horror, she let out a tiny, bitter laugh. Oh, she said. So it's true. You knew? Emily asked, voice cracking. I suspected, Mom said, eyes fixed on the table. But I didn't want to believe it. There it was. That moment I was both hoping for and dreading, the collapse of denial. The soundless implosion of the last thread, holding her pride together. I asked him once, she continued. Months ago. He denied it, of course. Swore on his life. And like an idiot, I let it go. Her eyes were wet now. Not full tears, not yet, but they were coming. I gave up so much for him, she whispered. 30 years. I stayed when I should have left. I made excuses. I carried our family while he played king. Emily reached for her hand. She pulled away. I don't need pity, she snapped. I need answers. I leaned in. Then you should ask him. Because he's not going to volunteer the truth. Mom was quiet for a long time. Then she wiped her eyes with the cloth napkin and stood up. I need to think, she said. Alone. And she walked out. Emily and I sat there for another 20 minutes, not really speaking. We didn't need to. The silence said enough. Later that night, I got a call from Ryan. Against my better judgment, I answered. What the hell is wrong with you? He barked. I didn't say anything. You broke this family. You destroyed everything. And now Mom's losing it? You're proud of that? I laughed. Not the bitter kind this time. A real, breathless laugh. You cheated on your wife, Ryan. You used me like an ATM. You lied to everyone and turned our family into a punchline. I just told the truth. Truth? He spat. You weaponized it. You've always been jealous, bitter. You don't have a husband. You don't have kids. So you take it out on the rest of us. That one hit. Not because it was true. It wasn't. But because it echoed all the little digs he'd made over the years. The jokes disguised as concern. The sideways compliments about how strong I was for being independent. I realized then he hadn't called to apologize. He called to blame me. So I did the only thing I could. I hung up, blocked his number, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt lighter. But peace is fragile. 2 nights later, I got a message from an unknown number. You should have kept your mouth shut. Then another. This isn't over. I showed them to Emily. Her face drained of color. Is that your number listed in the family chat? I nodded. Emily exhaled. They're trying to scare you. They're going to need more than text messages to do that, I said. But when I got home that night and saw someone had keyed the side of my car, deep, angry scratches carved into the metal like claw marks, that's when I realized this wasn't just fallout. It was war. I stood in front of my car, keys in hand, eyes locked on the word carved into the hood. Homewrecker. The irony made me laugh. Not a bitter, sharp laugh this time. This one was quiet, stunned, disbelieving. After everything I'd done for them, the money, the apartment, the dinners, the silence I used to bite back instead of defending myself, this was my reward? Georgia? Emily's voice came from behind me. She had rushed over the second I sent the photo. Her face tightened when she saw the scratches. This wasn't random, she said. No, I replied, tossing my keys into the passenger seat. It was personal. We both knew exactly who was behind it. Ryan didn't have the spine, But he had stories to spin. And our father. If he felt his reputation slipping, I wouldn't put it past him to encourage the narrative that I hadn't torn the family apart. It was easier to blame me than look in the mirror. Dad never called. Not after the brunch. Not after Mom walked out of the restaurant and disappeared for 2 days. It was Christine, of all people, who broke the silence. She texted me, "I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. For what? Her answer came quickly. For letting him make you the villain. You weren't. I knew it. I just wasn't strong enough to say it back then. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. But it stayed with me. 2 days later, Mom finally surfaced. She called Emily and asked to meet. The 3 of us sat in her backyard under the pergola Dad had built years ago, back when they still smiled at each other without forcing it. She looked different, not broken, not angry, resolved. "He won't admit it," she said. "He says he was just confused, that it was an emotional lapse, that it meant nothing." I raised an eyebrow. 2 years meant nothing? She smiled, a cold, tired thing. That's what I said. I waited. So, what now? She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Divorce papers. "I'm done," she said, this time for real. Emily let out a slow breath. "Are you okay?" "No," Mom admitted. "But I will be." There was a flicker of something new in her eyes. Not grief, not regret. Freedom. And maybe for the first time in a long time, I saw my mother as someone real, flawed, human. Not just the woman who picked favorites or defended the wrong people, but someone who had lived 30 years in a marriage, shaped more by duty than love. I could be angry with her. I probably should have been. But in that moment, I just felt relief. She stood up and hugged us both, brief, tight. Then she looked at me. "I was wrong about you," she said quietly. "You were never the one breaking this family. You were the only one brave enough to stop pretending." That hit harder than I expected. Ryan's collapse came not long after. Christine left him. Not quietly, not gracefully. She showed up at his job with a manila folder of screenshots and a restraining order. He tried to get back with her, called her, showed up at her gym. Security escorted him out. When that didn't work, he ran crying to Dad, who, by then, had moved into a depressing rental that still had furniture wrapped in plastic. Neither of them had anyone left to turn to. So naturally, they started telling people I had destroyed their lives. Aunt Valerie called, furious. "Your father says you poisoned your mother against him." Uncle Pete emailed me. "Why would you turn your back on Ryan when he needed you most?" And my favorite, a Facebook message from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. "You always were jealous of him." I didn't respond to any of them. Let them believe what they wanted. I was done explaining myself to people who had only ever heard one side, the version steeped in ego and cowardice. But the real finale? That came when Dad tried to win Mom back. He showed up at her house with flowers, apologies, promises. "I made a mistake," he said. "I'm not the same man anymore." Mom stood there, arms crossed, unreadable. Then, with the calm of a woman who had cried her last tear, she said, "You're absolutely right." He looked hopeful. "You're not the same man. The man I married would have fought for this family. You just ran from it, into someone younger, someone easier." He tried to interrupt, but she didn't let him. "I'm not interested in excuses anymore, or in your redemption arc." Then she shut the door in his face. A week later, I got a call from Dad. I debated ignoring it. But curiosity won. "Georgia," he said. His voice was calm, tired. "I just wanted to say, you were right. I waited. I didn't see it then. But you weren't trying to destroy anything. You were trying to protect us from the rot we refused to admit was there." I said nothing. "I lost everything," he said, "and maybe I deserved it." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Take care of your sister." It was the closest thing I'd ever get to an apology. That night, Emily came over with wine and takeout. We sat on my balcony and watched the city flicker like embers. I asked her how she felt now, with everything out in the open. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, lighter. Like we finally got out of a burning house and realized we were the only ones who smelled smoke. I nodded. That was exactly it. We didn't burn the house down. We just stopped pretending it wasn't already on fire. Story 2. My name is Natalie Brooks, and if you'd told me 10 years ago that my own mother would choose her new husband's family over me, I would have laughed in your face. But here we are. And this is the part where I finally tell the whole story. I used to believe I had the kind of family you see in holiday commercials. Just me, Dad, and Mom in our little 2-bedroom house with creaky floorboards and a backyard that turned into a mud pit every time it rained. But we were solid. At least, that's how it felt when I was a kid. Dad, Jonathan Brooks, was the kind of man people looked up to without him ever asking for it. He ran a logistics business. He started from scratch. Back then, it was just 2 trucks and a rented warehouse space. He used to come home late, grease under his nails, sweat on his brow, and a grin on his face like he'd just won the lottery. We're building something. He used to tell me while we ate cereal together after his shift, for you and your mom. Mom, or Laura as I call her now, because Mom doesn't really fit anymore, managed a diner when I was little. She wasn't exactly thrilled with it. Every other night she'd sit down at the table and sigh, I just want to be a real homemaker someday. No double shifts, no rude customers. Dad always told her she'd get there. He'd reach across the table, squeeze her hand, and say, you'll have your dream, just wait. He kept that promise. When I turned 9, Dad signed a deal with a major regional supplier. That was the big break. Suddenly, we weren't living paycheck to paycheck anymore. He upgraded the fleet, hired more drivers, and we moved into this gorgeous colonial-style home in a quiet cul-de-sac. My room? Bigger than our old living room. He even built me this massive bookshelf with his own hands. It took him a weekend, a few blisters, and a lot of swearing under his breath. But when he finished, he called me in and said, This is yours, all yours. For a while it felt like everything was perfect. Laura quit the diner, of course. Said she finally had time to be a full-time mom. Except, she wasn't around much. Not for the house, not for me. Lunch dates, spa days, shopping trips. That's what filled her time. It was like she'd been waiting to escape us all along. But Dad, he was still the same. Still made time for ice cream runs every Sunday. Still asked about my art projects and which kids were being annoying at school like it actually mattered. The last time we had one of those Sundays, he was talking about covering for a driver who'd called in sick. I remember asking if I could tag along. Road trip with Dad? Count me in. He laughed and said, Not this one, kiddo. It's just overnight. I'll be back before you know it. I hugged him extra tight that night. He left early the next morning. I heard the front door creak open and close before sunrise. Our housekeeper, Rosa, handed him his coffee in a thermos and waved him off. I didn't get up. I was too groggy. I never got to say goodbye. The call came at 3:49 a.m. I remember it exactly. I was wide awake, stomach twisted in knots, unable to sleep. Then came Laura's scream. I bolted out of bed, the sound of a lamp crashing onto the floor. Then cops in the living room. Whispered words floating through the air like ghosts. Collision, jackknife truck, died instantly. Gone. Just like that. I was 11 years old, staring at a casket I refused to believe held my father. Laura sobbed like she was auditioning for a daytime drama. At the time, I thought it was grief. Now, I'm not so sure. It was at the funeral that I met Ben and Clara, Dad's brother and sister-in-law. Total strangers. But Ben had Dad's eyes, those soft, tired corners that crinkled when he smiled. You must be Natalie, he said, kneeling down in front of me. I'm your uncle. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. I asked the question any kid would. How come I never met you before? He hesitated. Your dad and I had differences. Long time ago. But I had to come say goodbye to my baby brother. After the funeral, everything just shifted. Laura turned into someone I didn't recognize. She stepped into Dad's company like she knew what she was doing. but it was all smoke and mirrors. She started saying things like scaling down and restructuring, as if she even knew what those meant. The driver's people who used to bring me candy when I was little stopped getting paid. They walked out, one by one. I remember Rosa making me a sandwich and shaking her head, saying, "Your mother's burning through cash like she's allergic to savings." And she wasn't wrong. Designer handbags, spa retreats. A new BMW Laura was living like a real housewife. 6 months later, the company was gone. Sold for peanuts. Dad's dream, everything he built, trashed. After that, Laura barely came home. I lived with Rosa most days. She taught me how to cook arroz con pollo and cursed under her breath in Spanish when the mailman brought yet another shopping package. Then came him. It was a Sunday night, and I was doing math homework at the kitchen island when Laura burst through the door, smelling like wine and perfume. "Natalie," she called out, practically glowing. "Come meet Kevin." Kevin looked like a loan shark in a department store suit. Greasy smile. Handshake too firm. Teeth too white. "We got married last weekend," Laura chirped. "Isn't that exciting? You have a new dad now." I stared at her. I already have a dad. Kevin stepped in close. "Listen, kid, things are going to change around here, and you're going to show me some respect. You're not my father," I snapped, "and you never will be." That set the tone. Within 2 weeks, Kevin had moved in his whole damn family. His mother, Diane, his sister, Wendy, and Wendy's 12-year-old daughter, Tessa. They took over the house like it was some twisted episode of Home Invasion. Rosa, gone, fired, because Diane said her cooking smelled weird. My sanctuary, my bedroom, was next. I came home from school one day to find Tessa lounging on my bed, flipping through my sketchbook. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded. "Grandma Laura said this is my room now," she said, blowing a bubble with her gum. "It's bigger. I lost it." I lunged, she screamed, and it turned into an all-out brawl. Guess who got punished? They locked me in the tiny guest room for 2 days. My stuff? Thrown into boxes. Dad's bookshelf? Trashed. That night, I overheard Kevin talking downstairs. "She's a problem, Laura. I'm telling you, we need a better solution." Laura's voice cold, calm, calculated. "Maybe we can find her another home." I was 12, and I knew. They weren't bluffing. They were planning to get rid of me. I kept telling myself it was just talk. That maybe I misunderstood. That no matter how selfish Laura had become, she wouldn't actually give her daughter away. But the pit in my stomach said otherwise. The weeks that followed were a blur of avoidance. Laura barely looked at me. Kevin barked orders like he was some drill sergeant. Tessa? She pranced around the house like she'd won some contest. I did everything I could to stay invisible. School, library, sleep, repeat. Then came my 13th birthday. I didn't expect a party or gifts or even a cake. Birthdays had pretty much died with my dad. Still, I wasn't prepared for what actually happened. That evening, the doorbell rang, and I heard Laura's fake, cheery voice say, "Oh, look who's here." It was Ben and Clara. My heart almost gave out. "Happy birthday, Nat," Uncle Ben said, wrapping me in a big, warm hug. Clara handed me a gift bag. Inside was a sketch pad and a set of oil pastels. "You remembered I draw," I whispered. "Of course we did," she smiled. For the first time in months, I felt like I mattered again. Dinner was awkward. Laura slapped together a half-hearted meal, probably because she didn't want to look bad in front of my dad's brother. Kevin barely said a word. Tessa rolled her eyes through the whole thing. Then Laura cleared her throat and tapped her glass like she was giving a toast. "I'm glad you're both here," she said to Ben and Clara. "There's something I need to discuss." I didn't like her tone. My fork froze midair. "Natalie hasn't really adjusted to the new family dynamic," Laura continued, avoiding eye contact with me. "It's clear she's not happy here. And frankly, we're not either. So I've made a decision." I remember holding my breath, hoping I was wrong. "I'm putting her up for adoption." The world stopped spinning. She said it so casually, like she was donating an old couch. I thought maybe, since you and Clara never had kids." She trailed off, like it was some generous offer. Uncle Ben stood up so fast, his chair tipped over. "You're unbelievable," he said, his voice shaking. "Absolutely disgusting. This is your daughter." Kevin shifted in his seat like he was gearing up for a fight, but Ben shut him down with one sharp look. "We'll take her," he snapped. "We'll take her tonight." I sat there in shock. On my birthday. She was giving me away on my birthday. Clara was already helping me upstairs, grabbing my bags from the closet. I hadn't even unpacked after the last time Tessa stole my room. Everything the first owned fit into 2 suitcases. Laura never came up, never said goodbye. The only sound as I left that house was Tessa asking if she could have my new room too. Ben and Clara weren't rich. They lived in a smaller house on the edge of town, but it felt like a mansion to me. Not because of the space, because of the peace. There was no yelling, no insults, no cold shoulders, just warmth. They got the paperwork done faster than I expected. Laura signed her parental rights away without a single protest. Didn't even ask for updates. It stung, but at the same time, it was freeing. They officially adopted me a few months later. Legally, I became Natalie Brooks again, but in my heart, I was already theirs. Ben started calling me kiddo. Clara put notes in my lunchbox, even though I pretended I was too old for that. I got to pick out new furniture for my room. I didn't ask for purple walls this time. I went with soft gray, and Ben still built the bookshelves himself. They even enrolled me in a private school Ridgeview prep. It was intimidating at first, but it didn't take long to find my rhythm. With all the chaos behind me, my grades improved. I joined the art club, started volunteering at the animal shelter on weekends. They came to everything: parent nights, school plays, soccer games. It felt like they were making up for every event Laura never showed up to, and I soaked up every bit of it. The day I got my first A in math, we had a mini celebration with takeout and a movie night. I cried in my room after. Not because of the grade, but because someone finally gave a damn. Clara caught me wiping my eyes in the hallway. She didn't ask questions, just pulled me into a hug and whispered, "You're safe now. Nobody's ever giving you up again." Time moved fast after that. High school came and went. I graduated with honors. Ben and Clara were front row, clapping like I'd won an Olympic medal. They surprised me afterward with a small party and a cake that said, "We're so proud of you, our girl." That's when Clara dropped the real surprise they'd been quietly saving for college since the day I moved in. "We weren't sure where you'd want to go," Ben said, "so we just saved like crazy to give you options." I bawled. I didn't even try to hide it. I picked a state university nearby with a great business program. I wanted to study finance. Not for the money, though, that was a plus, but because I wanted control over my future. I never wanted to depend on someone else the way Laura had depended on Dad, or how she'd thrown it all away after he was gone. College was everything I hoped for. I got into the honors program, interned at a private equity firm my junior year, landed a job offer before I even walked across the graduation stage. The first thing I did with my signing bonus? Bought Ben a new set of woodworking tools. Clara, a leather-bound recipe book and tickets to Italy for their anniversary. They cried. Again. "You didn't have to spend that on us," Ben said. "Who else would I spend it on?" I smiled. "You're my parents." Years passed. I moved to the city, got my own place, earned promotion after promotion. Life was good, quiet, stable, fulfilling. And then I met Alex. We bumped into each other at a dog park. Literally. I was chasing after my foster puppy, and he was trying to teach his golden retriever how to fetch. Long story short, we bonded over spilled coffee and dog poop bags. A year later, he proposed at that same park. I said yes before he could finish the question. Ben hugged him so hard I thought he might crack a rib. Clara cried again, of course. They helped us plan every part of the wedding flowers, catering, music. I wanted them involved in everything, not because I needed help, but because I wanted them there. One afternoon, while finalizing the guest list, I got a message on Facebook. Natalie, I heard about your wedding. I know it's been a long time, but I'd really love to be there. I've changed. Please let me be part of your special day. Love, Mom. I stared at the screen like it was a bad dream. After all these years, I called Clara. I saw her at the grocery store last week, she said gently. She didn't ask about you. But when I mentioned how well you were doing, her expression changed. Natalie, they're struggling. Money problems, drama, the whole package. I think she wants something from you. It clicked instantly. She didn't miss me. She missed the money. I typed my reply slowly, deliberately. Laura, you stopped being my mother when you signed me away. I have parents now, real ones. I don't want you at my wedding. I don't want you in my life. Please don't contact me again. I hit send, then blocked her. No hesitation. I didn't feel sad. I felt free. The morning of my wedding, I woke up before sunrise. My stomach was full of butterflies, but the good kind. The air was cool, the sky soft with light. I stood at the window of the bridal suite, looking out at the garden we'd chosen for the ceremony. Everything felt still calm, like the world had finally exhaled. Clara was there, fixing my hair. Ben was downstairs, probably stressed checking the sound system or the seating chart. I smiled to myself. It felt like home, even here at this fancy venue, because they were here. That's what made it real. Then there was a knock at the door. A security guy stepped inside, hat in his hands. "Sorry to bother you, ma'am," he said, eyes darting between me and Clara. "There's, a situation at the front gate. Couple claiming to be family. Said they need to speak with you." I didn't need a name. I already knew. Clara stood up, eyes narrowing. "You don't have to deal with that, sweetheart. Not today." I nodded slowly, but I also knew I had to end it the right way. Not just ignore it, not run from it. Just close the door. "I'll handle it," I said. I walked down the cobblestone path in full wedding dress, heels clicking softly, heart steady. There they were, Laura, Kevin, and a boy I didn't recognize, probably their son. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight, eyes darting around. Kevin had aged, badly. His clothes looked like knockoffs. Laura's makeup was too thick, and her voice too loud. "Natalie," she shrieked, grabbing the bars of the gate. "How dare you not invite your own mother to your wedding?" I stopped a few feet away, calm, quiet. "You don't get to call yourself that anymore," she scoffed. "We're your family. You're marrying some fancy banker, throwing a big party while we're drowning in bills." There it was, the real reason. Not love, not regret, just money. Kevin stepped up. "We raised you. Don't act like we didn't do anything for you." I laughed once, cold and flat. "You locked me in a room. You let your niece steal my home. You threw me away like I was nothing. And now you're here for what? A slice of cake? A check?" Laura's face twisted. "You're ungrateful. After everything No," I cut her off. "I was a child. You were supposed to protect me. You didn't. You replaced me. You gave me away. And now you want to act like none of that happened because I turned out okay?" Kevin looked like he wanted to argue, but the boy beside him, he just looked down at the ground. That told me everything. I turned to the security guard. "They're not invited. They're not family. Please have them removed." Laura screamed something after me as they were escorted away, but I didn't hear it. I wasn't listening anymore. Back in the suite, Clara met me with worried eyes. "You all right?" I smiled. "For real this time." "Yeah, I'm more than all right." That was the last weight I needed to let go. Ben peeked his head in, tie crooked. "You ready, kiddo?" I looked in the mirror one last time. My dress shimmered softly in the morning light. The woman looking back wasn't a scared girl anymore. She was strong, whole, loved. "I'm ready," I said. The music played. The doors opened. Ben offered his arm, and I took it without hesitation. As we walked down the aisle, I saw Alex standing at the altar, eyes already watery. Guests turned, smiling. Friends, family, people who had stood beside me through the worst and the best. Ben leaned in, just before we reached the front. "You've come a long way, Nat. Couldn't have done it without you," I whispered back. The ceremony was perfect, simple, real. When we said our vows, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath with us. And when Alex kissed me, the applause that followed sounded like a door slamming shut behind the past. The reception ran late into the night. Clara danced with Alex. Ben gave a speech that had half the room laughing and the other half crying. I remember looking around at one point, watching people laugh, dance, hug, and thinking, this is what healing looks like. Not some big dramatic moment, not revenge, just peace, just love. 6 months later, Alex and I took our honeymoon to Greece. Sunset dinners, ocean air, laughter under the stars. It was everything I never knew I needed. We're home now, settling into life, planning Sunday dinners with Ben and Clara. Sometimes people ask if I ever reconnected with my real family, and I always tell them the same thing. My real parents are the ones who never let me go. I don't know where Laura is now, or Kevin, or Tessa. I heard through a friend that they had to sell the old house, but that's not my concern anymore. That part of my story is closed. I'm Natalie Brooks, wife, daughter, survivor, and I wouldn't change a thing. Because in the end, this story isn't about losing a family. It's about finding the right one. The kind that doesn't give up on you. The kind that shows up. The kind that loves you not out of obligation but out of choice. And that choice, that love, it saved me.